So I find it extremely important to do a Facebook Live around family because after the last 2 months, ever since the end of September, the pain and the suffering that I dealt with, that I thought would basically be forever. Holy shit, you can't force anyone to go through that kind of suffering. You can't force anyone to go through that kind of pain that I went through the last 2 freaking months. And I knew that people were fractions of their potential. I knew that they were fractions of their potential, of their family. I knew that the system wanted to breed family to see what kind of condensed gifts the mother, the father, the child, whether the son or daughter, offer when they foster those strengths and weaknesses and all that, through the hospital system, medical system, holistic system, as well as the school system and the societal constructs. And so that's why that's why we had that baby boom. When they discover they can just develop life, and it could have been through, I would assume that back in the 1800s, that's why those insane asylums existed, because so many women were getting pregnant by strangers, by people, and they were unwed mothers, of course. And so they have these babies that they can't take care of because they're in these slums. And so society took the babies, put them in orphanages, or, they developed babies, put them in incubators. There's probably a whole backstory around the incubators, and they may have developed fetuses and things like that in the lab. And then, of course, the World's Fair back in the 1800s showed you that they can conjure up life at any given moment and then figure out how to foster it and then guide it towards certain things and then develop an advanced society. So, yeah, that's why they developed the whole thing around the family. That's why your religion is all about family, friends, and organizations, and groupthink, and the holidays. And forget the religious aspect, because we know people believe that it's all pagan and satanic. Okay. No, it's getting people together to mix microbes, to feel connectivity, to feel connectedness, relatedness. And then on top of that, develop new viruses, potentially, marriages and families and ideas. And that's why you have also academia, and you have the politics, religion, and science and all that. And so there was so much thought and organization that fostered the system to develop extreme innovation. And the prototype of what they've developed today, it may have existed before, but I couldn't tell you if they had the internet before, if they had these devices and phones. People say, oh yeah, look at this picture from back in 1800, this person had a cell phone. Who the hell knows if that was photoshopped or not? So family is basically cutting pieces of yourself. And so it was so interesting that I was adopted. I was adopted into a left-wing family, yes, in California. And it was through probably different blood types, different backgrounds. And I was adopted, and I was a starving little orphan. So I came from basically nothing when you think about it. I was in starvation. I was in major deficit ward. It was, yeah. So I had a lot more to catch up with. So you can imagine if it took me 50 years to get to the point where I'm at, and it took me 8 years to finally see through every single mistake and every single thing that I potentially did to myself and whatever, and even learn, the rules and laws of our society, the last 8 years as far as making claims and all that. And it was brutal and it was painful. Can you only imagine what your kids, when you bear a child now, what they're going to have to go through? Oh, my kids are strong. Yeah, they're strong until they're not. Until when they start having symptoms of disease, of evolution, and then you're giving them elderberry syrup. But you're supposed to not let them suffer. Yeah, I understand that. So what happens is people basically stunt the evolution of their children because they're forced to. They stunt the evolution and the growth of themselves. And then you can only cure and stunt evolution and growth for so long before it wants to then redouble its efforts and come back harder. And you may not have the infrastructure. And so if somebody can live off of a very small percentage of their brain, we've seen that in some of the news articles out there, not just what that article that I posted of Phineas Gage, but other people have lived off of very small percentages of their brain, and they're still relatively cognitive. I don't know exactly how wide open and considerate they are to new information. When you have a very small brain, you really have to understand it's painful to learn new information. It's painful to take on evolution. Is painful. And so just because someone can live off a piece of some kind of brain, because maybe 90% of their brain is dead and only 10% is living, yeah, it's like a cell. A cell is alive. Just how much intelligence does it have? It has to keep, adding evolution to it to then give it growth and development and some kind of purpose. But just because you can conjure up life in your uterus because you have sex with someone is not very remarkable. And what are you conjuring up in your belly? And what are you conjuring up in our society? And what kind of pain and suffering and suffering are these children going to have to go through to keep up? And what kind of predatory behaviors are they going to exhibit because they are in such deficit? They're looking for pieces of themselves that are lost because mommy basically cut off pieces of herself, and she's looking for the other half, better half, and then she's married to her kids and married to her sons and married to her daughters. He's married to her daughters, his daughters. And that's kind of the nature of family, and it's very incestuous when you think about it. It's very incestuous, and it's crazy. And so when I say when you are the parent and you've lived and suffered, you have a better chance than your children who have yet to experience what it's like to stand in the shoes of somebody else. At least the parents now, in this right now, and they're able to read, maybe they're able to comprehend, maybe they could stand in the shoes of somebody else and maybe develop some empathy and maybe give themselves a chance to survive. But these kids don't have enough life experience, and it's so dangerous out there that they try to get life experience, and some predator finds someone who's like this little lamb, innocent lamb, and they get taken. They're gone. And so these parents really are up against a rock and a hard place because they try to give their kids experiences. They'd be left open, wide open for someone to take them. And they protect them so much that somebody will get in, find a way to get in and do damage. Or these girls get married off, forced to have children because that's the traditions. And they're the human sacrifice. So is the baby, because there's no guarantee that baby or that mother's going to survive. Even the father, because they're also been procreated on extensively. Men have come from the duress of women. It's called antibodies. They are the T cells and the Ys. T is like a Y, just kind of a flipped up Y. They are the antibodies. And so the system realized what it is they did, and now it's time to go back to the drawing board. But not even back to the drawing board, just go back to, but now we have all the evidence to show you what happens when you develop so many children in a family. You dilute the potential. And those poor kids are suffering, trying to keep up, trying to grow and develop, and you can't let them suffer in evolution. So when they're getting plied with elderberry syrup and they're having food taken away, what kind of life do you think is in that future for that kid? And so there's no way any parent even today is going to be able to develop a very well-balanced child who isn't going to suffer astronomically and then eventually be put down because you can't let anything suffer. And that's the role of the system, is to put down the suffering of these children and parents in major deficit as humanely as possible. And so knowing what I had to deal with the last 2 months, finally I have better range of motion, but I'll tell you, I still feel stuff, but it's not as bad. But the last couple days, just, with the holidays, my husband's home for a few days, I'm blowing my nose, a little bit of a blood, but not too bad. I feel the dryness in my nose, so I know that there was a virus coming through and releasing and all that, but it's not as bad. But I can only imagine what people are taking on right now. I mean, the last 2 months of the pain and suffering, that's why they are projecting a major pandemic come 2025. Because once all this shit incubates in people who are like bigger than me, like literally bigger than me, so that's a lot more virus to work through. When you're like maybe 50 pounds heavier than me, and that virus is in the body. Because people are hanging out together. They're hanging out together in large groups, small groups, and all that. And so the virus gets in the body, it incubates, and it takes another energy shift, and it's going to metastasize. And that's where then you're going to get the pandemic, when things metastasize inside the body, because it's laying dormant for a minute. It's not going to let you know it's in there until it's opportune for the virus to then be so prolific. And that's where you get the pandemic. When things shift in the body tries to push it out, or it metastasizes, then you get the turbo cancer, you get the diet suddenly, you get all the diagnosed with conditions, and yeah, some kind of pox. But I'll tell you, my leg is finally right here down, I'm not going to point the camera, but my skin repaired whatever it is I picked up back at the end of September that incubated half of the first week of October. And then the last part of October was like, I was just zipping around like I was on some kind of life high, because that virus was running through my system. So I was up at 3 o'clock every morning. Oh my God, every morning. So Johnny on the spot. And then November was the suffering. I mean, suffering in the end of October, but November was the suffering. It was the arm pain. It was just up at 3 o'clock in the morning and releasing. It was bad. So if I had to suffer through that, and I had to sleep certain times and eat some like spaghetti, and oh my gosh, can you only imagine people out there who haven't even fathomed what it's like to even be like, okay, I got to do this. Like, oh my God, I know what's in it for. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be deadly this next year. It's going to be so fucking deadly, because things are incubating right now, and people don't have a strong enough immune system and a strong enough wherewithal and the conditioning to release down there, to release up here, to feel the pain, like just even the arm, both sides. See, I don't get I got the one side the last couple days, one side here was like, oh God, it's so painful, I can't even lay on this side. And then the other side over here, and I remember a couple years ago I had the neck pain and the back pain and all that. Oh Lord. Yeah, the arm pain. People be like, oh, that's why people are dying suddenly. Because the body's trying to push all this material throughout the immune system, lymph nodes and everything, and it gets stopped up around their armpits. I don't even get the armpit rash anymore. I just get the arm pain because the body is moving this stuff through the blood vessels. But when people die from heart attacks and strokes, it's because either there's so much resistance and there's breakage, so there's sepsis, and then they get, a heart attack or a stroke, or there's a clot. And that's what these embalmers are pulling out of the blood vessels. It's so much growth that wasn't allowed to be released because a person kept plying themselves with remedies. They're stopped up on both ends. They don't know how to blow their nose. They're using Mucinex, Imodium AD Mucinex, and they're doing all their drugs. And so where does all this bacteria and all this waste material go? It's in the colon or in the blood vessels. And so when they die from a clot, because the growth was that astronomical and they have no release process, or they have a release process but it's so weak, then yeah, these things are going to grow like fucking shrimp inside their blood vessels. Because they're actively taking all the antiparasitics, antifungals, antivirals, antibiotics, antiparasitic, all that anti-whatever causes then offspring, because positive negative equals negative, right? And an offspring. And so they have trillions and trillions of offspring in the body that have nowhere to go. It's like you're trapping these beasts inside. And then you add in cannabis and add in all these natural remedies. Now you have a drugged offspring inside your body they're just going to wreak havoc. And that's why these people are dying suddenly. And that's why they're so religious and so spiritual, because the little offspring inside are like, oh, we get to go and wreak havoc. We get to go do all this stuff. And so they have all these awakenings and all this stuff. And just like, oh my God. And so, yeah, that's, you know, and that's why people are dying suddenly. That is why people are dying suddenly, because the waste material and all these little offspring have nowhere to go. And if they do go somewhere, let's say the person has diarrhea or they throw up or they get skin conditions and they have all these chronic hive conditions. Like I had a lot of hives the last couple of years. They're finally pretty much gone, non-existent. But they have all these hives and then it turns into cancer, turns into disease, turns into all these things. And so they hang out with people, causing more offspring. So the body has no way to catch up with itself. See, the only reason why I stayed home and stayed safe is because I knew that if I went out there, I would get sick, because it would be like whatever I had inside, whatever material offspring I had inside, bacteria, and then get exposed to some diverse company. And then it would fornicate, develop a little offspring. Then I'd have hives, I'd have growth, and I'd have the pain and the release, and then having to eat. That's why when people smoke pot and they get hungry, it's because you develop offspring. You're trying to feed the offspring with all of your munchies. That's what the munchies are. It's basically you're developing offspring of disease, and now you have to feed it. You're not necessarily feeding yourself, you're feeding the little offspring that you just developed from smoking that cannabis. So why is it that people who smoke cannabis are still deteriorating? Because they have grown some little offspring inside that they have to feed, and either get bigger and bigger, or they age quicker, or they develop all these demons. It's no coincidence that a lot of these cultures are based on the ganja. It's like the destruction of a culture when it's based on ganja and cannabis. And it's the white culture, it's the black culture, it's the Hispanic culture, it's the Asian. Well, I don't know how many Asians. I haven't seen. Well, I know Asians do smoke a lot of whatever. There was the opium way back when in the Silk Road. To this day, I'm not sure exactly what the Asian cultures gravitate towards as far as illicit drugs. But I know a lot of the black culture turns to cannabis. And potentially maybe the Hindus, but I don't know for sure. I know they like the curries. Using the turmeric and the honey and the apple cider vinegar and all the curries. And that has its own offspring that will destroy a person over time, if not sooner. And so when I say it's the food that is going to release the demons, but again, you'd have to be conditioned. And in this environment with the energy so palpable and so influential, it's like as soon as I eat, sometimes the body processes the food that quickly. I could eat in the morning like pizza rolls and have those pizza rolls be processed in the afternoon. That's how quick shit grows, develops, and processes in my world. But in other people's worlds, that's how much accumulates in their gut and their colon. And that's why there's so much colon cancer in our society right now. Intestinal colon cancer, because people's guts are so stopped up that they have this, again, like I said, a poop plug. And then it's just backed up. And that's why when you're taking these Ozempics and that woman died from shit coming out of her mouth because the body, instead of it coming out that way down there, it's coming up the other end through the lungs and the throat. And so that alimentary canal now is pushing all the waste up this way. That's why people smell like shit when their breath stinks, right? Because they're backed up. You have a lot of people who are backed up. A lot of obese people are backed up. A lot of people who are skinny backed up. People who are on these carnivore diets, eating just protein, or they're drinking raw milk. If you can't even release, and you're drinking, and you're just eating just all animal, that's it, animal proteins, you have a constipation like no other. You have a baby rhinoceros growing in your colon. And then drinking raw milk on top of that, with all these pathogens that are getting stuck in your colon. You can only imagine the Garden of Eden some of these people are growing inside their gut, and they don't even know it until it rears its ugly head, until Medusa comes out in people. But they, again, remember, the system has developed such smart campaigns. They're like, oh yeah, drink raw milk because it is better for you because the system wants to hamper your intelligence and take away your ability to think clearly. I mean, you see the campaigns are so elaborate to justify why they would drink raw milk, why they would eat only organic, and why they would only eat meat only. And it is that whole diet, health and wellness, cannabis, industry, politics, religion, science, spirituality is a multi-trillion-dollar campaign industry. And they've been working on you ever since fucking back before the 1960s, the 1940s. And so they had to have at least your grandparents be like, oh yeah, organic is good. You had to have your parents be like, oh yeah, organic is great. Drink raw milk if the government's so bad. They had to have your parents speak of this in some way. They had to have your grandparents speak of this in some way. Because how else you can get the third generation to buy into it and destroy themselves voluntarily? You had to have at least 3 generations buy into the whole organic shit, buy into, oh, the government's out to get you. Well, they're not wrong. But you're the one that chooses to believe certain things. You're the one that chooses not to listen to the safety measures and indicators. So now we have all this information, and guess what? We have 3 generations on Facebook already programmed to destroy themselves, unalive themselves voluntarily. You don't have to lift a gun or do anything. You can have fears of nuclear war. Yeah, if nuclear war happens, it happens. But we hear all this. Oh, yeah, fear of nuclear war, fear of this, fear of that, whatever. Oh, and I'm drinking raw milk. See, what is that? The art of war is when you think the enemy is far away, it's actually near. Yeah, it's your belief system that eating only carnivore, not omnivore, but carnivore, and drinking raw milk and eating only organic and sucking down pesticides and smoking cannabis every day is like the thing to do. You don't need to lift a gun when you have people actively destroying themselves and their children and telling their whole base that food is poison. You don't need any guns or bombs in this type of World War III. It's fucking brainwashing. Oh, but Jillian, they're brainwashing you. They indoctrinated you, and you're a left-wing, came from a left-wing household, and you're from, your parents are JEWISH, and people who are anti-SEMITIC. And they're like, oh, Jillian, you've been indoctrinated. You're part of the Illuminati, Jillian. You're this. No, they fucking got you. I figured out a long time ago how programmed the system was. When I studied the background of Obama, bless his heart, okay? And the mortgage crisis, when I knew my mother knew every single thing that happened in that household, and she knew when people were doing stupid shit. Granted, yeah, it was just my dad and her, so she had to know some things. A lot of everything. But if my mother can control the finances in the house, what makes you think Obama didn't know how the mortgage crisis would have happened? Of course. But you can't prove it. You don't know what he knew and when he knew it. You don't know if you see, that's the thing. So if the government leadership allows these certain crises to happen, and then I'm, programmed a certain way, then everything else is fucking contrived and planned out and long campaigns, and you have major brainwashing in people. But at this point, it's too late. People who already are going to have children because that's what they're told to do. They have no other choice in life at this point. They're stuck. They don't know how to be on their own. They can't be by themselves. They're under the influence, drugged out beyond belief, inebriated, suffering, already invested their whole life in these campaigns that are multi-billion, trillion-dollar. Yeah, they're stuck. They're done. So me even mentioning this is not gonna make a fucking difference in the bigger picture, because look how many people follow certain people on Facebook. I could give this information out for free, which I am. I pointed out, and how many people even on my Facebook in the Jilly Juice world even buy into this? Very slim to none. You could show people every evidence and back it up with science and logic. And guess what's running them? The demons are running them. The demons don't want them to release. They get so much better payoff and benefit from being under the influence around their friends and family, in starvation, wanting their daughters and sons to have children, under the traditions. And they get, pleasure paradise, and they get a lot of money for it. So the temptation of being rich and looking beautiful and acting, that's so much better than suffering to live, right? Absolutely. And that's how they got you. They made life to be so almost basically unbearable that you're forced to be under the influence of friends, family, drugs, and social capital, and money, and spirituality, and beauty. And that was the whole cult revolution in the 1960s and the charismatics. You know, when you have some people bowing down to you and telling you how beautiful you are and how smart you are and how gorgeous you are and how gorgeous your family is, there's no fucking way you're going to give that up for nothing in this world. People want to be like Hollywood. They want to be famous. They want to be bowed. They want to be worshipped. They want someone to feed them grapes. And how do they prove that? Well, they're showing skin because they know skin is in. Skin wins. That's right. Sexuality wins. How many girls on Facebook use that as a lead in? Doing kissy faces. You have fucking 8-year-olds doing kissy faces. That's how much sexuality sells. So there's no way they're going to look at my world because it's a suffering world. It's suffer to live. But you're all against, I don't want to die someday. I don't want to die suddenly. I want to die someday, but not suddenly. Well, this is some fast-forwarded time. Now you're going to see correlation equals causation with everything that you're doing. Everything. But again, you can't tell people anything because they'll find a way to justify it. Remember, people are suffering. They have to have animals. They have to have children. They have to have friends and family around them. They can't stay on their own for the life of them. They can't even be on their own. They must be in a religion. They must be in a binary argument of Satan versus a savior. And that's the world. And that's the thing about when you parse yourself out, when you parse out your body to an offspring, and then you indoctrinate it into your politics, religion, and science, now you have little weapons of war. And now how many little weapons of war who are children end up to be adults who are starving themselves, starving their grandchildren, blowing off aggressive scripture against people, saying that food is poison. Yeah, this campaign of depopulation is so intricate and so well thought out that I have the freedom to say it because it's not even going to fucking penetrate 99.9999% of people on my Facebook. It won't even resonate. It won't even penetrate. It'll be like, oh, Jillian's stupid. And I already know this. That's why I have the freedom to say things because I know it's not going to fucking make any difference in a lot of people's world. And this is knew this too. They knew as soon as, one person figures it out, 99% of people won't figure it out and they'll think I'm stupid. They'll think I'm dumb. Jillian's anti this and anti that. No. Yeah. It's pretty much over. But I'm glad I have the freedom to say this. Because I'll tell you, when you know something is wrong and you don't have the freedom to speak because you're afraid of this and that, that's a jail like no other. When you can't even tell a story without offending someone or without feeling like you're going to lose friends and family and following. And so a lot of these people in family and friends and following and the gurus and the charismatics, they're in a jail. They have to keep performing and even keep looping in the same information. They can't even evolve. They're not allowed to evolve. Or they'll lose market share. They'll lose their friends and family. They'll lose influence. They'll lose money. They'll lose endorsements. Yeah. People like me are actually free. And so freedom is not something that you can buy. It's not something that you can campaign for. You can't force people to be free. Freedom is painful. And it also involves responsibility. It involves being well-read, self-motivating, learning everything that you never knew, and having a desire to learn. Freedom is a desire to learn. Freedom is a desire to evolve. Freedom is not creationism. Creationism, when you think about it, is a jail. Because you get created for one moment and then destroyed the next moment. That's creationism. Evolution is painful. So why do you think, we're in a just Judeo-Christian society that's all about creationism, and a few people understand evolution in the real sense. Very few people understand evolution. Science understands evolution, but you can't make anyone suffer. That's the thing about science, is that you have choices to evolve. But again, only the adult who who understands what they're doing. Even then, there are adults say, oh, I understand, Jillian. No, you fucking don't. But it's not for me to make you think that you don't understand, because that's not for me to say, whatever. Okay, if you understand, you understand. Do what you do. So, yeah. So, now there's 4 people I respect in the past. Genghis Khan, Imhotep, Dante Alighieri, and Schopenhauer. These are all men. Where are the women? I don't know. Yeah, they were revolutionaries, but they ended up... there is no women, people of the past, in history that I can think of that I have gravitated towards. It was the men of the past. Genghis Khan, badass. Imhotep, badass, even though he only lived to be 20. Dante, badass. And Schopenhauer. And he was most recent with Schopenhauer. The whole truth passed through 3 stages and all that. He has a lot of quotes that I really like. But, yeah, these were men. And some of them had a strong parental unit. Others didn't. And so you really have to be someone special to be able to get out of your own way and survive despite what your kids, what your family, what society is doing. Because I'm telling you, when I'm saying everyone's trying to kill you, everyone is at the immunological level. And when you get out there and you're by yourself and you're in the wrong part of town, someone will try to kill you at the physical level. And when you know that everyone is trying to kill you at the immunological or physical level or the spiritual level, even your government, but they're giving you a chance to survive if you lessen the amount of people around you who are trying to fucking kill you at the immunological, physical, spiritual, political level. Oh, that's such a negative way of thinking. No, it's called science. It's called being aware of science, politics, and religions and all that. I hang out with my husband because we've had a history together and we've pledged our lives to each other and we're willing to suffer. And I will suffer to live. Will he suffer to die? I don't, it's up to him. I do the best I can to advise him and to keep food in him, knowing how aggressive it is out there. It's bad out there. But I won't die or suffer for anyone else if I don't have to. I'm not a martyr. And a lot of people out there, many people in politics, religion, and science want to be martyrs. And you see them all over your Facebook because they're in the activism world. They're in the mommy and me groups. They're in your religions. They're in the politics. And they're in the sciences out there. A lot of martyrs. And so, yeah, becoming whole is painful. And when you're a fractional reserve, when you're a fraction of your potential, that's hard to gain what was lost during procreation. And it would require you releasing the demons within, yes, but also not even making your circle smaller, because what does that even mean? It's all relative. Having no circle around you except for the government, who's off in their own ivory towers, giving you an infrastructure of law and order. But they're not in your business unless you're bringing in an animal, a child, or an elderly person or dependent. And so if you want to be whole again and actually become whole again, it's either you're married and the person doesn't take from you so much that you can't regrow, or you're by yourself. And either you work from home or you're independently wealthy or you're getting Social Security that you can live on, in America at least. But as soon as you surround yourself with people, so many friends, so many families, and animals, and all of that, you won't become a whole person. You'll become a martyr. That's the grim part of becoming whole. It will be virtually impossible for most people. But I want you to see somebody who can become whole. But it's fucking painful. Bye.